And the fact that you can move it around in a more discreet way than other currencies is very applicable for a lot of people. Of course, might want to use it in a way that is not so proper or legal.
There's a lot of things we could speculate on here. When I got involved early on, I kind of just sat on the sidelines and watched because people said Bitcoin was anonymous, and I'm as a technologist, I could read the spec and I knew it was not anonymous. So I didn't get involved in the community because it was basically being lied to about what it was.
Okay, so you think that the future of Bitcoin is a completely open book for everybody to read. There's nothing secret about it.
Yeah, basically.
All right. My next guest is Derek Moore at Derek Moore 203 on Twitter. And what he is doing right now is kind of a test program, a pilot, if you will, to see if you can't beat social media censorship using blockchain technology. I'm pretty much ignorant on this whole thing. This was just brought to me today. This was after I explained to Leo how my mind is in 1,000 places. So we're going to let Derek explain this. So Derek Moore, what is going on? What is this experiment on blockchain where you're trying to beat censorship by using blockchain to essentially etch broadcasts or information or data into the internet?
Well, Owen, if you've ever encountered some Bitcoiners and talked to them, they'll insist to you that Bitcoin is censorship resistant. So I'm looking to use some of that to make hypermedia and multimedia content on Bitcoin, similarly censorship resistant. Basically, when you store data inside of these Bitcoin transactions, they become permanently embedded in the blockchain and they can't be removed. You're kind of within your rights as maybe a sovereign individual, as they like to say in the Bitcoin community, to pay those fees and post those transactions and have your data there literally forever. So I've been messing with this since about December 2018, helping to work with the community to develop these technologies so that we can have the protocols to encode this data on Bitcoin itself. And sort of make
so what would this be like? Would this be like putting because I was told, you can get more into the details, you basically did a Bitcoin transaction and used an Alex Jones broadcast as the data during the transfer. So is this like putting an Alex Jones broadcast like on the face of a coin, on the face of a bill, or is this like when you're doing the bank transaction, then putting down in a log the information?
Yeah, it's a little bit like the description on a ledger. You get to like describe what the transaction relates to. So I'm doing my work on a branch of the Bitcoin network called Bitcoin SV, or the BSV network. SV stands for Satoshi Vision. We're trying to massively scale Bitcoin like the Bitcoin developers haven't really tried to do yet. And I guess you could say that I'm not leaving money behind with this data, but I'm kind of describing my own transactions as having the data inside of it. Technically, there's a feature of the transaction called an op return, and the op return allows you to append data into your transaction. So for the example I did last night with Alex Jones's show from yesterday, I actually split that audio file up across about 232 transactions. Then I posted one final transaction that joins all of those transactions together, and then we have kind of a media viewer that you'll give it the master transaction ID, and it will go reassemble all that data and send you the streaming audio.
So what is you're kind of testing this right now, and so far it sounds like it worked for the transaction that you've done. So was the test case successful, and then where do you go from here?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this for a while, so we've had a lot of test cases, but trying to get the word out that this stuff actually works, that this stuff is actually scalable, that this stuff kind of doesn't break down at scale like a lot of Bitcoiners will tell you. I know you guys have had, what's his name, Max Kaiser on a whole lot, and he's probably, like, if he's watching this, probably pretty angry with me right now because what I'm recommending, a lot of these people fear that it will decentralize Bitcoin or it will re-centralize Bitcoin. Now I'm not of their mindset. I say that actually adoption at scale will protect Bitcoin's decentralization. Yeah, this guy here. Anyway, he's a traditional Bitcoiner. I'm kind of not. I have a background in data centers and very large scale networks and large storage systems. So I kind of know what we can do with modern technology. Bitcoin so far has kind of been in the hobbyist closet or basement, and we're trying to push it into the data center so that we can get global scale, so that transnational corporations can kind of meet their use cases and have reasons to go use it and reasons to host their own data centers. But we've stored a bunch of stuff already. I started with a couple of video blogs of myself. Each were 10 minutes. It cost me about $6 or $7 to upload. The video files were split across about 90 transactions. And that was kind of my way of like blowing the socks off the community. Look what we can do with this. Here I am on chain forever.
Well, I gotta say this. I'm stunned that, I mean, you're saying you're pretty much pioneering this as far as you know in the Bitcoin community?
But yeah, I'm one of them, yeah.
I'm stunned by that because, I mean, sure, you're well aware, moving sensitive data and information is a market in and of itself. Just ask Hillary Clinton. I'm shocked that other people haven't tried to do something like this for highly classified or sensitive data that can pretty much go untracked or unmarked.
Right. Well, on some of the other blockchains, you have people talking about timestamping files or committing hashes of the files to the blockchain. We're kind of going one step further and committing the entire file to the blockchain. So not just like a signature of the file, but the entire file itself. So that's what the Satoshi Vision Network is kind of dedicated to do. Wired magazine tried to out this Australian Craig Wright as Satoshi. There's a pretty good case that he is Satoshi. He's one of the most knowledgeable people on the subject of Bitcoin. Now, a lot of traditional Bitcoiners are going to maybe rail at what I'm saying right now, but we claim to have Satoshi working with us, and we're building this system to support these huge data loads and this mass storage capability. Inside of Bitcoin is a crypto system. So like you were saying, we can secure our data. It's not well known, and I've been saying this for like 8 years, but Bitcoin is a mass surveillance system. It's perfectly traceable. It's absolutely transparent. So you actually have to, when you're using a mass surveillance system, or what we might call surveillance, you actually have to go out of your way to regain some semblance of privacy. And you can do that with the crypto system that's built into Bitcoin. So like you were saying, you could put your trade secrets on the chain. You could use those in your court proceedings as evidence. You could have the cryptographic keys that secure that data so only you can decrypt it. There's really an endless amount of use cases for this. I think the one that maybe is most important to you guys is perhaps the most censored broadcasters on the planet right now is the censorship resistance of Bitcoin. If we can scale the blockchain, allow massive on-chain data, then people who are at risk of censorship in kind of corporatocracies like we're in, or in oppressive regimes like other people are in, then we can actually get that data out there and prevent that data from being
Well, and I was going to say, too, we're about to go to a break here. Leo Zagami has some questions for you on the other side. But I'll say this before we take a break, and we can get back into this on the other side with Leo Zagami's questions.
Sure.
But is this kind of like, you could even set up like a dead man switch with data that could be released with a Bitcoin dump, you know, if you die or disappear or something, right?
Right, yeah, if you don't check it.
All right, let's talk more about that. We're about to go to break. So let's talk more about some other potential uses for what Derek Moore is testing with right now. And then Leo Zagami has some questions as well. But basically, we're talking about using the data in what is a transaction log for Bitcoin transactions to just make sure that anything stays on the internet. Derek Moore is our guest. Leo Zagami in studio with us. He's got a couple questions. But what Derek is going over right now is how he's testing it successfully, how to use the transaction method of Bitcoin to archive data on the internet. And he's testing out with an Alex Jones broadcast. He's done it with a couple of videos that he's done, but really it could be used for anything. And he's kind of pioneering this right now. And I was saying before the break, and he can finish up commenting on this, and then Leo Zagami has a couple questions. So as far as you know, this is a practice that has not really been done before. And I was stunned because, I mean we know that, look, it's no secret there's a lot of criminal activity going on in the world. I'm stunned that criminals that want to move data that is sensitive haven't done what you're proposing next. And do you fear that if perhaps the powers that be in Bitcoin see that happening, that they could change what it is you're trying to accomplish?
Well, there's certainly a question of like condemned and illegal content on the blockchain. I don't have to say the obvious, but when this stuff does end up on the blockchain, then the legal authorities have serious concerns, whether it's child abuse imagery or piracy or whatever it is. So the authorities will crack down on that sort of thing, and service providers who are serving out Bitcoin data, they will be mandated to sort of maintain some blacklists and not serve that data out once they're informed that there's condemned or illegal content in these transactions. So that's a real concern, but ISPs have been dealing with that forever. So that's kind of not a new thing to information technology operations at all. It might be a new thing to Bitcoin as we start to stuff data into it.
Leo, did you have some questions for Derek?
Well, hello, Derek. First of all, regarding Satoshi, because I heard his name mentioned, many years ago, there was, in the early stages of Bitcoin, I was told that the real Satoshi was actually killed. And that, you ever heard about this story?
There's a ton of stories, sure. I think I've probably caught wind of that one. Maybe I don't know specifics, but there's a lot of rumors about who Satoshi might be, or
it seems to me it's like this Bitcoin is attracting also, of course, the elite. So they want to take advantage of this new creation. And isn't it true that China has mined a lot of Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think so. There's Bitmain out of China, and they dominated the mining space.
Well, isn't that a bad thing in the end? Because
I don't know. It could be. I'm kind of neutral towards it all, I guess.
Okay.
It's going to be whatever it's going to be, I guess.
Because you have also countries like North Korea who has been mining a lot of Bitcoin. And the fact that you can move it around in a more discreet way than other currencies is very applicable for a lot of people. Of course, might want to use it in a way that is not so proper or legal.
There's a lot of things we could speculate on here. When I got involved early on, I kind of just sat on the sidelines and watched because people said Bitcoin was anonymous, and I'm as a technologist, I could read the spec and I knew it was not anonymous. So I didn't get involved in the community because it was basically being lied to about what it was.
Okay, so you think that the future of Bitcoin is a completely open book for everybody to read. There's nothing secret about it.
Yeah, basically. And to get there, we need to really massively scale the underlying technology so that literally everyone can do daily activities on it. Right now, we're limited to something like 4 to 7 transactions per second on the main Bitcoin. There are 3 Bitcoins right now. Bitcoin Core, led by the Core team, Bitcoin Cash, led by the ABC team, and Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, led by Craig Wright's team. Gizmodo and Wired and a few other outlets said that Craig Wright was Satoshi back in 2016. There's a really important legal case going on in Florida right now that is predicated upon Craig Wright being Satoshi. So, you know, we're going to figure out what it is. But as a technologist, I just want to work on something that works. You know, I've been sitting on the sidelines.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. I mean, because I mean, you're also involving Infowars, so we have to thank you. I mean,
well, you know, I used to think maybe Bitcoin was evil. Like as a money only, maybe it could potentially be a bad thing. As a transparent mass surveillance system that people are lied to about being anonymous, like that sounds bad. Maybe you should know you're interacting with a mass surveillance system.
The elimination of cash, it's a bad thing, because the elimination of cash and a digital world currency is really the nightmare we have always envisioned from the start here.
Yeah, I mean, the mark or whatever, like when I was a kid, Protestants would say we were going to get implanted with chips and that's how we would transact, and that was the mark of the beast. You know, I don't know, but certainly the young interns I work with now, they're kind of excited to get implanted with chips and use this mark of the beast. You know,
and Zuckerberg has started his own.
Zuckerberg will never take the chip. Let's just be.
The beast of the mark.
Beast of the mark.
Well, you know, when Silk Road was busted, I think a lot of cartels were using Bitcoin, and they believed that it was anonymous. But when they saw how Silk Road was busted and how certain dealers were busted, they kind of found out, holy crap, this is not anonymous. And they kind of quit moving their coins. So if you think about all these now developed anonymous blockchains, and then people are trying to develop atomic swaps into those blockchains, you know, there might be some truth to this speculation that the cartels have a ton of Bitcoin and they're waiting for these atomic swaps to other anonymous chains to mature so that their next Bitcoin movement can be that atomic swap into that anon coin or whatever. So,
well, let me ask you this then, from someone who kind of, obviously you're working a lot with Bitcoin now, you're studying it, but you came in as a skeptic. For somebody that came in as a skeptic and is now kind of pioneering ways to transfer data using Bitcoin transactions and just following the growth of Bitcoin, the speculation and everything. But as somebody who came in as a critic, what is just your overall analysis for Bitcoin and the future of Bitcoin?
Well, I probably would have to agree with Alex Jones when he was opposed to it because of all the pump and dumps. And, you know, I think that using Bitcoin as a data carrier network, we can actually create maybe the first feedback loop that Bitcoin needs to stabilize its price. If I'm buying Bitcoin so that I can store Bitcoin, or so I can store things in Bitcoin, you know, maybe its price will stabilize against this storage use case and against the costs of that storage over time.
So almost like an organic backed cryptocurrency with data.
Correct. Yeah. And then I'm buying Bitcoin so that I can afford to store things with Bitcoin.
That's interesting, because obviously the big issue that people have with the federal note is that it's really not backed. I mean, they claim it's backed by gold. I mean, you look at the fractional reserve banking system, you know that that's probably not true. It just doesn't add up.
Right.
But if somebody says, well, what's Bitcoin backed by? But if you do have a data storage system, then that could be intrinsic value.
Now, we could still speculate on price, but we need to decouple transaction fees from price. And that's one of our barriers right now. So the storage I was doing back in February was a lot cheaper than the storage I'm doing now, because in February, Bitcoin SV was worth $50 and now it's worth about $200. So my prices have literally quadrupled for my storage experiments. So we are working with the miners and with the mining network to decouple transaction fees from the price of a Bitcoin, so that I can, right now we pay what's called 1 Satoshi per byte. A Satoshi is the smallest unit of Bitcoin. And we need to make that dynamic. Maybe I need to pay 1/3 of a Satoshi per byte, or 1 Satoshi for every 3 bytes. And that'll help us to reduce the cost as the price is speculated on.
Let's say, because we only got a minute left, I want to ask you one more question. They had the 3D printable gun data code that they are trying to ban. Is that something you could store in a Bitcoin transaction?
Sure. Yeah, maybe that's the next thing we should do, is get some of those plans uploaded to Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great next test, because I mean, if you want to have some sort of intrinsic backed cryptocurrency, wouldn't that be one way? Hey, here's it's literally banned data. Nothing illegal about it. It's just banned off the internet. You can only get it here.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, I mean, we need to start going that route.
All right.
I mean,
well, where can people follow your work? We're about to go to a break here. 30 seconds.
Sure.
Where can people follow your work?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Derek M00R3. Derek Moore is a common name, so I had to get creative with it. But you know, and I'm active with the community that's building this stuff, so you'll find other people like me. Maybe you can get involved yourself. All
right, there you go, Derek Moore. An interesting story brought to me by Rob Dew with Derek Moore there. Archiving Alex Jones broadcast. Maybe that's how we archive stuff now, because eventually they'll probably try to erase him off every internet site ever.
Casey, I'm sure it's wishful thinking. You're saying Tiger comes back from nowhere. Is he on Turbo Force, which is an amazing pre-workout and long-term energy system unlike any other? Or Tiger Woods isn't actually taking Turbo Force, is he? That's a good idea, though. I should try to send him some.
I'm not entirely sure, but when I was watching the Masters, he was drinking a bottle of Poland Spring that was pink. Check it out. I mean, you can go on YouTube, because they showed him a lot, you know, when he was just standing around, because he's a big story. You know, he's Tiger Woods. And every once in a while, he'd be sucking on that bottle of Poland Spring, and it was pink. And I don't know anybody else makes an energy drink that's pink.
I'll have to try to find out. I know I've been told by multiple folks that are friends with him he's a listener, but I don't really worry about stuff like that. But that's great. Who knows? He might be on Turbo Force. Who knows?
Well, last year when he won his first tournament in a long time, they tried to grill him on, like, degrading the president in some way. You know, this is what you need in a press conference after a golf tournament, and he wouldn't do it.
I know. He's friends with Trump. He's been friends with Trump like 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. The media wasn't even talking about his win. They were talking about his politics.
Thank you, Casey.